Hello and welcome to MovieBoozer.com's virtual pubcast. I'm your host, Ken Ekman, and I'm joined today by Bill Leon,
Hello.
Bill Arsenault,
Hey guys.
and myself. So, we have kind of been slacking a bit. We haven't seen a lot of movies lately.
A lot of slacking. I mean, come on.
Okay, I've been slacking. I will say that for sure.
I certainly have been too. I've seen a couple movies, but it hasn't really. I don't know what's. I don't know. I think the Movie Pass dream is over now for me. So I'm switching to AMC A-List, and I'm kind of just getting in that groove.
Okay.
Kind of
I have been doing music movies on Monday nights on Rabbit, and I saw Saturday Night Fever for the first time this past Monday.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much my reaction to Saturday Night Fever.
Good soundtrack, even though they fucking play the same 3 songs like 4 different times.
Now, if you really want to be entertained, then watch Staying Alive.
Right, yeah, I have that, and yeah, I'm planning on it.
Yeah, Zach and I watched that together last year, and my God, is it awful.
Did Stallone write that or direct
He directed it, yeah.
Directed it,
and Frank Stallone does the song Far From Over.
There's a few Frank Stallone songs in it, actually.
Oh, okay.
He loves his brother so much. Stupid movie. Yeah, either that or he hates him so much. I don't know what to think. But whatever the case is, he puts him in his movies, or at least he used to. And
yeah,
bolts are there.
So the movies that we have seen, one of them that we're going to talk about, it's while none of us saw the new Slender Man movie,
Hawk Ripjaw did, and he will probably talk about it next week. So consider this sort of a primer.
Yes. So a couple of years back, HBO did a documentary called Beware the Slender Man, which was about the true story of the Slender Man stabbing, in which 2 girls attempted to murder one of their friends in order to...
12 years old. 12 years old!
Yeah. And they did it on the auspices of wanting to appease the Slender Man. And if I'm not mistaken, because you just saw it a moment ago, Bill,
yep.
They thought that the Slender Man was going to take them to his castle or something like that.
His mansion.
His mansion. Okay.
And I'm so completely unfamiliar with like the creepypasta culture and everything. Like I'm aware of that somebody made a video game out of Slender Man. That's probably how it first popped up on my radar.
Yeah.
Never played it. What's that, Bill?
Probably on Newgrounds, right?
No, I think it was on Steam and it was free. It's a 3D game. It's not like a Flash game.
Oh, okay.
So my experience with Slender Man actually comes from a very interesting perspective in that I believe the origin of Slender Man, I think a lot of people don't mention this, but the 1998 video game Half-Life, in that game, throughout the entire game, there is this creepy looking dude in a suit who appears in various points in the game, just out of reach of your character and usually hidden. So you have to look to see him. And throughout the game, it's like this building creepy presence of who is this guy? What is he doing? And why does he keep showing up and like looking at me and walking away? And he's just this thin, tall dude in a suit, and his face is like really just like disturbing looking.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe, especially because just a couple years later, that's when the creepypasta thing started to take off. In the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you that whoever started the concept took some inspiration from that idea of like this dude in a suit who's who's just like stalking you.
In the movie, they say that its first real presence on the internet was a Photoshop contest where the goal was to Photoshop something in that like looks seamless.
Yeah.
And so it was really simple, just, photoshopping the Slender Man in the background of like pictures of kids and playgrounds and shit.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and so all the pictures of these, reported Slender Man are a lot of them owe their origin to that. And
I love how we can trace back these urban legends before they become deities.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like just imagine if I don't mean to get controversial here. Well, maybe I do, but just imagine if this technology had been around back when Christianity was just starting. They could trace everything, figure out what really happened. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Citation needed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I also when it started to take off, I remember the Marble Hornets YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
and that was basically a series, a web series that was kind of the most famous continuing saga of the Slender Man myth. It's a found footage story that takes place over, I think, like over 100 episodes.
Okay, there's a guy on YouTube that I watch called Nightmind, and he kind of deconstructs series like that, and he has one on Marble Hornets, but that's the only reason I've heard of it, is because I've not even watched the video, just seen like the video in his uploads.
I'm reasonably sure I saw it linked at fark.com, because back in the mid-2000s, that was a website I frequented so often because it was like a great way to get like funny news stories and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I still go there from time to time, but not as regularly as I used to. So Beware the Slender Man, the documentary, focuses on this particular circumstance, but it also does go into the mythos of Slender Man a little bit. And so, Bill, tell me about your experience with this documentary.
I had heard of it. I've been watching a few other HBO documentaries, and this one I was kind of like, I don't know, But then the recent Half in the Bag on the movie Slender Man, they were talking up the documentary a little bit, so I was like, okay, I'll watch it. And I really, outside of just hearing about this incident, like I don't even live in that area. Like I know, Ken, you're closer to Wisconsin where this happened.
Oh, well, Milwaukee is very near the Chicagoland area. It's like there's barely a line of demarcation between the Chicagoland Metro and the Milwaukee Metro. So, yeah, it was definitely news down here.
I think the only reason I had heard of it is just because it is sort of such a ridiculous story.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what to say about the documentary. It's pretty straightforward. It gives you as much information as they were able to get.
So let me ask you this. Do you believe that at least one of those girls is a fucking sociopath?
The one girl was diagnosed schizophrenic.
Yeah.
She's a sociopath.
The one...
This means she's schizophrenic.
Have you seen any of the footage from this, Bill?
No, I haven't. But I'm just saying, like, if in the documentary she's called schizophrenic, it doesn't necessarily mean she's sociopathic.
Right. No, yeah.
Well, that's the thing is, the diagnosis and mental health diagnosis vary, but there's
she could be both, but it doesn't necessarily mean she's both.
Right. I'm not saying that she's both. From what I understand, because there's of the two girls, the one who was sort of the leader, who kind of brought her friend along and kind of made her, or not made her, but sort of kind of like brainwashed her, so to speak.
I don't think that's the case. Not from the doc.
Really?
They kind of talk about like how these two girls were pretty much social outcasts, and they talk about how like when you're in a bubble, if it's just the two of them that believe this, it makes sense to both parties. And I just and the thing is, I'm pretty sure the girl that is schizophrenic is the one that stabbed the victim. But they have footage of the detectives talking to them, and the one girl is just like so emotionless and cold. It's
You're right. That's the sociopathic aspect of it.
Okay.
Just not
caring, really.
Well, it's not even care. Care doesn't enter into it. It's just this is a thing that happened, and yeah. And how do you feel about that? Well, it happened. It's just so. It's like
Beavis and Butthead would have an emotional reaction to that. You know what I mean? Those guys were very like, okay, you know. But even back then, they would have reacted a big time to something like this. You know, even the '90s Generation X kids would react. You know, in some ways, these Generation Z kids.
Well, I'm not going to get into kids these days thing.
Oh, kids these days.
There is something regarding that I do want to bring up. Towards the end of the film, they start showing all this fan art that they dug up of people kind of celebrating what these girls did. And I kind of assume it's all children, and that's fucking disturbing.
Well, was it children like art, or was it like Photoshop stuff? Like what was the level of the art?
It was like the two girls holding a knife covered in blood, smiling, and like drawn sort of like anime style. That was one of them.
Okay, well, it could have been done by like high schoolers. I'm not saying it's not less disturbing. I'm saying it might not be toddlers doing it. You know?
What I'm getting at is that there is a community out there that loves this Slender Man shit, and it seems like they embraced what these girls did. Maybe not the whole community, but like a select few people in there. I mean, drawing fan art like that's fucking crazy.
That's the thing. If you are a mentally disturbed individual who doesn't see the wrong in what those girls did, what you're going to do is you're going to nurture that, you know, that story and use it to build upon your delusion.
Like the fans of Neil Breen. As you said nurture. This was off topic and before the recording of everyone, but we were talking about Neil Breen and whether or not the guy is self-aware at this point. And we were of the opinion that he's not quite there yet, but that his audience is there and they're intentionally egging him on to get even worse.
I wouldn't say they're intentionally egging him on to get worse. I think that his audience wants him to continue making movies.
That's what I meant.
And if there were people who are just hounding him all the time saying you suck as a filmmaker, then he would stop. You know,
it doesn't stop Zack Snyder, but
there are defenders. That's the thing. There are those minor, you know, those like DC fanatic fanboys who will like anything that is DC because it is DC.
Well, which is funny because I'm kind of a Zack Snyder defender, but I'm not a DC fanboy. You know,
I thought you were gonna say I'm not fucking crazy.
That sounds like the worst Netflix TV miniseries. Zack Snyder Defenders.
the Zack Snyder Defenders.
It couldn't be worse than the actual Netflix Defenders.
If it's DC doing it, yeah, it could be worse.
Yeah, if it's DC doing it, it would be worse. Yes. Although the new DC stuff is actually looking okay. The Shazam movie, that trailer looked pretty good.
I'm interested in that, but
did you see the trailer for Venom?
Well, that's not DC. That's Marvel.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's right.
That's not.
Whatever.
You Marvel. That's Sony Marvel.
Are you excited about Aquaman starring Roman Reigns?
actually, the way it looks and the way it feels, kind of.
He's gonna be Superman punching all over the place.
I'm skeptical, of course, but the way James Wan made that trailer, or whoever made the trailer under the direction of James Wan, made it feel. I like how they're not using air bubbles to talk. They're just talking underwater as if it's air.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like that logic.
Which that would be, you know, if they're not using air bubbles, then presumably they have a gill that they're processing like a fish would. Or
they're just people talking underwater, or they're just actors in front of a green screen and they cropped in water.
Right. Well, none of that. That's what they did. But what I'm saying is,
Right,
if
but
there aren't any bubbles when they're talking,
they have
then
to go somewhere.
yeah. So
It's on their neck or up their ass.
either it's a crass special effects error, or it is just that's they
Somewhere.
process the oxygen out of the water like a fish.
You know what? I totally forgot about this. Slender Man is fine. Watch it. The documentary, not the horror film.
Slender is fun watching.
The guy who made Tickled has a Netflix series now called Dark Tourist that I was watching.
I haven't seen this yet, but I got it saved, and I'm planning on watching it very soon.
You should watch Tickled first.
Okay. Well, I think I have HBO on Hulu, so I should be able to watch it.
Yes.
Okay.
Tickled is great. Dark Tourist surprised me because I'm not a big fan of like travel shows like that.
Mhm.
But the premise, for those who don't know what a dark tourist is, it's people who go on vacation and they want to do dangerous shit, pretty much.
Or they visit places that are infamous.
Yes. And so David Farrier, the New Zealand journalist behind Tickled, goes all over the world to these dark tourism hotspots, and that's really the gist of it. There's a lot of different stuff that happens, like they go through like a wasteland in Japan that was bombed, and like they all have these radiation meters that keep going up the deeper they go into the place, and so that starts making everybody nervous. Then there's one where this is apparently a thing, like fake crossing the border from Mexico into the United States, like simulation crossing the borders to get the experience of an illegal immigrant.
Well, if they really want the experience, I mean, they'll have to be rounded up into camps or something. I mean,
they have actors like show up in vans and shit and put fake guns to their head.
God damn.
This is so stupid. This is like white privilege.
Yeah.
At its peak.
Definitely.
I don't know. Maybe it can get worse.
I haven't finished the series yet, so it could get worse. But it's great. Check it out.
That gag from Xavier Renegade Angel, where they were doing what was it? It was a city that was based off of a lotion plant, a skin lotion plant, and Xavier comes to town and sets up like a an America land for Muslim tourists to come to. And they're like, we don't want to be judged. And he's like, okay, people, we got to be extra sensitive to these guys.
Okay, we've got to be extra sensitive.
Right, exactly. That's how they talk. Yeah. And so they go out of their way to turn it from just the American experience into what the Muslim Americans want. Or not Muslim, the Muslim tourists want.
Mm-hmm.
And then it becomes like, this crazy thing. There's an uprising, and it's just, that story that you just said from Dark Tourist reminded me of that
Mm-hmm.
little arc from an obscure PFFR show.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to the next film on our discussion list, which is Black Klansman.
No, it's just Black Klansman, but yeah, it looks like that. It looks like Black.
It's spelled Black KK, Black with three Ks
with a K in the middle. That's just an artistic, creative thing, because it's like there's two Ks already close to each other. Why not add a third K in the middle? Spike
Lee likes having the titles of his movies be a little weird, like he like "The Sweet Blood of Jesus."
Yeah,
that
Chirac.
Chirac is a real term, though, isn't it?
Yeah, like kind of is.
It was. Yeah, he didn't invent Chirac, but it is.
It is a weird word.
It is.
When you think of it, it's like you're combining two words and that kind of thing. Black Klansman.
Getting really good reviews. It's got like a 98 on Rotten Tomatoes.
Critics are loving this. They're calling it like Spike Lee's best film. I don't know if I would go that far. I would say it's one of his best, but I don't think I would say it's his absolute best. If you ask me, in my opinion, what his absolute best would be it's probably Do the Right Thing, and will probably always be Do the Right Thing. It's just a perfectly well-rounded film.
I might put Malcolm X ahead of Do the Right Thing, but they're both great.
Very good too. Yeah, definitely. He's a great filmmaker. He's had some ups and downs, but what filmmaker hasn't, except for Stanley Kubrick? Not to say anything bad about Spike Lee. I'm sorry, Spike. I don't mean to offend you.
He's definitely listening.
He's equally offended. He is rather sensitive around Spike Lee. No, Black Klansman, it's marketed kind of as a comedy, and we talked about this a little bit, I believe, in the Facebook chat or on a previous podcast session. I don't remember, but we said something like it was marketed a certain way, and is that tone throughout the film that's actually presented? And it kind of is. The movie starts with this really great opening sequence. That's basically it's a surprise cameo appearance from an actor. Should I give away who it is?
Were you about to say Alec Baldwin?
Yes.
Okay, you said Alec, so I heard you already.
I thought I caught myself.
No, I heard it.
Alec Baldwin, who plays a fake 1950s demagogue, like one of those guys who, like Glenn Beck, those types, who's wearing, the white man suit. He's got the buzz cut. He's got the brimmed glasses and everything. He's a G-man type. And he's walking in front of a camera, which is filming him in front of a slideshow screen. And he's talking about the history of white America and how we're under attack by the minorities and the blacks and the gays and all this kind of stuff. And throughout the speech, he stumbles. He stutters. He'll skip on a word and he'll go, "What's my line?" And then they'll cut to the next line reading.
Like a jump cut?
Kind of, yeah. It's like an immediate cut.
Okay.
And then he'll stutter. He'll almost go into a Tourette's outbreak at one point. Like he just starts going, "Fuck!" Like I got the line wrong. Damn it! That kind of thing. And it's fucking hilarious because he's doing exactly what Alex Jones does. If you've ever watched an Alex Jones broadcast, just for the heck of it, Alex Jones will just burst out into incendiary swear words every once in a while. Mm-hmm. It's fucking nuts. Mm-hmm. So that's the opening. And from there, we go into the story of Ron Stallworth, who was a rookie investigator in Colorado, who was initially tasked with going undercover into the black activist community, but he saw an opportunity just almost, on a whim to infiltrate the KKK. And so he and a fellow detective played by Adam Driver, and it should be noted too that Stallworth is played by Denzel Washington's son, who does a great performance in this film. It's really good. Every performance in this movie is really good. Adam Driver.
We should say his son is named John David Washington.
Who is his son? John David Washington. I don't know if this is his first movie or if it's one of his first movies.
He's been doing some acting. He's actually the HBO show Ballers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
But I don't know if he's done that many actual films. I'm actually looking it up. It looks like he actually had a cameo appearance as student in Harlem classroom in Malcolm X. So that's the final shot of the movie, actually.
Oh, okay.
That's interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like that.
Must have been very little.
Right, he had to have been.
It was an elementary school classroom, so it makes sense.
That makes sense, yeah. So, anyways, he teams up with Adam Driver. Adam Driver will play the in-person version of Ron Stallworth. That's part of the joke. He is actually Ron Stallworth, but when he called the KKK offices, which is just known as the organization, they don't like to use the term KKK. Mm-hmm. He uses his real name by accident. And the police force who were overhearing him talking to the KKK, they're like, "Did you just use your real fucking name?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Oh shit, I did." So he has to come up with a way to cover that. So what he does is he has Adam Driver pretend to be him in person, and then he will take the ball and run with it over the phone. And eventually he ends up talking with David Duke himself. If you don't know who David Duke is, look him up. He's still alive. He's a absolute pain in the ass here in Louisiana.
He loves our president.
He loves our president. He loves racism. He loves hate. He loves all bullshit. But back then, back in the 70s, he was trying to make the KKK mainstream. And he was trying to get it to where they could run for office. And now they are running for office. Not just Trump. I mean, like for Senate and Congress and stuff, you know? He really wanted to bring it, you know, bring that movement up some. So
and this is based on a true story, right?
Well, this is totally based on truth. There's some stylistic differences in term and dramatic effect kind of stuff that goes on, but for the most part, all this really went down.
Let me put something in perspective about David Duke, by the way.
Yeah.
Just looking at from a very basic perspective, this is all you need to know about him. In the 1970s, up until like 1975, he registered as an American Nazi.
Yes.
And yeah, that's all I got to say.
Oh, yeah, you can say about the guy. He's very outspoken.
There's no going back on that, in my opinion.
Once you do that, you've pretty much labeled yourself forever as what exactly you are, you know, what you is. And so the movie comes to a head when Duke comes to town to hold a little mini get-together with the local KKK organization. And to meet in person Stallworth, who he's been having conversations with over the phone and becoming quite good friends with, he thinks. Which is kind of, those make for very funny scenes because Duke, played by Topher Grace, you wouldn't think would be good casting, but considering how he looked back then, David Duke, and also the presence of Topher Grace now, which is kind of, I don't want to say like too calmly and charming, but Topher does have this. He doesn't look like a guy who can beat you up. You know what I mean? he looks like mild mannered and unseemly. You know, like just kind of a regular guy.
He looks exactly like the kind of person who would drop the Chris and just go by Topher.
Yes, exactly. He looks like a Topher. But they're having this phone conversation, and Duke is like, "Well, I can tell you're not a black guy because he actually says this at one point. He's like, why would this guy be calling me? And Stallworth's like, oh shit, he thinks I'm a black guy. And then Duke switches and he's like, no, I know you're not a black guy because you don't talk like a black guy. See, black people have a certain dialect. They have an accent. You know how they say this in a certain way and that in a certain way? And Stallworth was just laughing his ass off. You know, he's like holding the phone. The part where you talk into the phone, he's just like giggling, like, dude, this guy's a fucking idiot. You know?
He was actually talking to Cash from Sorry to Bother You.
Yeah. Exactly. It's interesting. These movies came out so close together. Sorry to Bother You, Blind Spotting,
and they're both about talking on the phone, and you know,
or about customer service in some way. With white it's fascinating. There really needs to be more said about this. But anyway, the movie comes to the head where the KKK have this big meetup, and the real Ron Stallworth has to be security for David Duke. The guy in charge of the police force, the chief there, he thinks it would be funny for the real Ron Stallworth to be, you know, the head of the security for Duke. And he's like, dude, chief, what are you doing? He's like, the chief just wants to fuck with this guy, you know, because he's a rookie and because of other reasons. But they don't really get into that stuff with the chief. But emotions run high in this movie. The movie is also about really it gets into kind of the responsibility of filmmaking a little bit in terms of getting things accurately and not wielding your power of persuasion for wrongdoing. There's this beautiful sequence where Harry Belafonte plays I forget what the name of the activist he's supposed to be playing is, but I think when you're watching the movie, you're not really concerned about that. You're just like, oh, it's Harry Belafonte. He's telling a group of activists the story of this young black man who was lynched right after a screening of The Birth of a Nation. Mm-hmm. W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation. And he talks about how that was the resurgence of the KKK and, you know, all that stuff. And this sequence is cut simultaneously with the KKK group watching Birth of a Nation and cheering it on and having their little get-together ceremony where they're splashing each other with water and almost almost baptizing each other as KKK members, that kind of thing, which is pretty lame when you think about it. But of course, it is. But they're just loving Birth of a Nation. Oh, look at this scene! Look at that scene! They're just getting fired up about it, and it's striking and horrific. This sequence, and it's heartbreaking too, because as a film buff and as a film fan and as a moviegoer and as a film critic, you're like, this is right. This is wrong, but they're getting it right. This is exactly what happened. The first blockbuster in American history was a racist movie, and it brought about the resurgence of the KKK. And
Yep.
that can't be understated enough. That has to be stated fully, and shouted.
It was one of the most effective pieces of anti-racial propaganda ever made.
Right. And D.W. Griffith didn't seem to care about, like, he cared afterwards. I think when he got lambasted by people that with a conscience, that said your movie's pretty fucking horrible. He made Intolerance, which was like the next big blockbuster, big budgeted thing. I don't know how well it did with his fan base at this point, but still, though, I mean, he made an attempt, but I think the attempt was very much for show and superficial. I think he made the movie he wanted to make with Birth of a Nation and didn't give a fuck. He didn't think the reaction would be that bad. It probably thought it would be great, which it was for him, because he ended up making a big fucking hit. So the movie ends on what we think is going to be a positive note, but then it completely does this car crash at 100 miles an hour into a brick friggin' wall. When things just come to a complete stop, and Spike Lee just shows footage from the Charlottesville riot that happened last year at the alt-right Unite the Right rally, when the car smashed into a bunch of protesters, killing a woman. And that's how the movie ends. The movie ends on that note.
Yeah, that sounds like a Spike Lee choice.
But it definitely was. But
that's not to take anything away from it. I have no problem with that.
Gets to that scene though was pretty interesting, because it's like it faded out into it. Stylistically, like we're having the story conclude. Ron Stallworth and his girlfriend are talking, and then they hear noise outside their apartment. They pull their guns out. They're getting ready to fire on what they think is a perpetrator, and it turns out to be the KKK burning crosses. And then there we see this montage of Trump, of David Duke nowadays, of the Charlottesville riot, and all this other stuff. And it's like, you think of those two images, you can't help but think of at the end of Goodfellas, when Joe Pesci's character inside of Henry's mind pulls a gun on him and starts firing as he's looking out at the camera from his suburban house. You can't help but think of that level of like what the movie's saying. Like the movie's saying, like, we got to do something about this. This is a real problem. People are, this movement, this culture is coming back, and it's coming back big, and it's influencing people in policy, and that's not right. That's horrible. It's not right for anyone. So yeah, no, this movie I would give an absolute toast to, of course. I know toasts are very rare for me to give out.
Oh yeah, you never do.
I never do. Right? But no, in the case of Black Klansman, it's absolutely appropriate. I think this is a movie that's, I mean, just like most Spike Lee movies, it's bold, but it's bold in the right places. And even in places you don't expect it to be bold, he takes a chance and does something great with it, really. So I don't think I would go so far as to call this his best film. It's one of his best films. My opinion, like I said before, Do the Right Thing is probably his best film. But go to the theater, run to the theater if you can. Go see this movie. It's really great. Do you guys have questions?
Yeah, no, I think you summed it up quite a bit, and I will definitely be checking that movie out as soon as I can. Probably in the next day or two. So.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we'll move on to the last movie we have to discuss tonight in this slightly abbreviated episode, which is kind of a change from Black Klansman, Dog Days.
Oh boy.
So what is this? You guys keep talking about it in the chat.
So Dog Days is a movie directed by Ken Marino.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay, that's insane to me.
This is his brother, right?
Yes, the brother of Dan Marino, of course.
Oh, I have a friend that makes that joke all the time.
Really? Okay.
Yeah,
he's a big football guy, though.
Oh, okay.
So I'm just gonna start right here. Have you guys seen Love Actually?
Nope.
Okay, so what did you think of Love Actually, Bill?
I don't know. I mean, I wasn't the audience for it, you know.
Okay.
More like Hate Actually.
So,
like, actually, I hated this film.
So I want you to take Love Actually, and I want you to remove the Christmas theme and insert dogs.
The dog theme, the general dog theme.
Yeah, the general theme of dogs, and take the sharply written screenplay, because regardless of whether you liked the movie or not, I think it's undebatable that the director / writer Richard Curtis is a solid screenwriter, and he writes snappy dialogue. And replace it with a lot of improvisational humor. That doesn't quite hit most of the time.
Does Ken Marino act in this?
He has a quick cameo.
Oh, okay.
But the movie has a great cast, actually. I'm going to read some of these names off. In the movie, you have Vanessa Hudgens, Eva Longoria, Adam Pally.
Really great cast member.
Yeah, you have Tone Bell. David Wayne appears in it. Rob Corddry. The comedian Tig Notaro's in it.
Oh.
Thomas Lennon.
Yeah, these are all people.
Lauren Lapkus.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a lot of really good people are in this film. And the problem is, well, this movie has a few intertwined stories that are, that lead into, they eventually kind of intersect. And whenever you do that, whenever you mix a bunch of stories together, you are taking a big chance that you're going to be, that there's going to be a weak story or two in there. And unfortunately, most of them are weak in this case. Now, that said, believe it or not, while I think this movie is bad, it's not all bad. There are some things in the movie that I genuinely like. And so that's the weird conundrum you have. Because this movie is split into a bunch of different... it's not like an anthology thing where each story is told separately. They're intercut. And some of the stories are interesting. I'm going to go ahead and start kind of go through them a little bit. So the first story I'll talk about in Dog Days is one of the, I would say, kind of the main-ish story in the movie. It is this stuck-up news morning show host, like your typical perky coffee, morning coffee talk show girl news thing. You know what I mean? The kind that the kind that middle-aged moms like to watch.
Okay, yeah, all right.
Yeah. So anyway, she walks in on her boyfriend cheating on her, and she finds out that the boyfriend was cheating on her because she walks into the apartment and her dog walks up to her with a bra in his mouth. and it's not her bra.
I thought you were going to say the dog spoke to her.
Yes, the dog. Yeah, no.
That's what I was actually expecting too.
I feel like a weird mentally ill film.
So anyway, she kicks out the boyfriend and is going through this thing, and she regresses even more into kind of stuck-up mode on television until one day when a former basketball player comes on and kind of, treats her, like gets her angry and riled up, and she curses on camera and somehow doesn't lose her job immediately. And the as would happen in a rom-com, a hacky rom-com, they said, "Oh, well, people liked the way you had that conversation with that basketball player, so guess what? He's your new co-host."
And then they become lovers.
Yeah, you guessed that right away. And not just that, but their dogs love each other too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Who plays the basketball player?
So that's actually where I'm going to get a little bit positive, because the basketball player is Tone Bell. He's a stand-up comedian and actor. If you've not seen his stuff, I mean, he was in like Key and Peele and stuff like that, Disjointed. He's a talented performer, but I had never seen him, do like acting before. And the one thing I will say is his character in this movie is charming. You completely buy that he's this charming former basketball player who just, you buy that he's the kind of person who would instantly get a TV talk show role just because of his popularity. On the other hand, the anchor I forget the actress who plays the anchor, because these names all kind of blend together for me. But
in the remake of that movie where they have to stop their hearts to cheat death or something.
Yeah,
Flatliners, yes.
Right. So anyway, that's one of them. The another story is about a coffee shop barista who volunteers at a no-kill dog shelter to try to get the attention of this veterinarian that she's pining after. And she is also ignoring the advances of the owner of the dog shelter, who clearly worships and is obsessed with her. And of course, she winds up finding out that the veterinarian's a hack and, and kind of a self-involved douchebag. And she realizes the unrequited love of the dog shelter owner is the one that she needs.
The stalker?
Yeah. And then another story is about this is one of the more funny ones. So Adam Pally plays Dax. He's kind of the stoner brother of this of this woman who is about to give birth, and her husband Rob Corddry, I'm sorry, not Rob Corddry. Shit, I mixed that up. Her husband is Thomas Lennon.
Oh, okay.
And so they basically stick Adam Pally with their dog to get the dog out of the house so that they can focus on the baby for the first few weeks. And the Adam Pally is completely ill-equipped to take care of any living thing. And it makes for some good jokes. Now, it goes into some base humor that really hurt the film. Of course, there's a dog fart joke in there.
Oh, of course.
But that said, there is one sequence in there where the dog accidentally gets into some pot brownies, and the way Ken Marino shoots the dog getting hot, getting the high feeling for the first time is really funny. I got some good laughs out of that scene. And in that subplot, Thomas Lennon plays like a completely bullwhipped husband who just can't get two words in edgeway. And he's pretty funny in it. So again, a mediocre plot point. Now here's the thing. It keeps going. There's two other subplots in this freaking thing. I'll go through these quick. The one with Rob Corddry is about a husband and wife who are adopting this daughter. When the daughter gets there, she's like completely out of it and doesn't show any emotion whatsoever until they find a dog.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. That's really all there is to say about that one. And then we get to the one that I actually legitimately like and think would have made a good short film just on its own. It's a subplot involving a cantankerous old man he stiffs this pizza delivery boy for a tip, and the pizza delivery boy, like determined to kind of get back at him, shouts at him from across the street, like an insult. And what ends up happening is the old man loses control of his dog. His dog runs away, and he just like. And at the same time, he suffers, in the panic of losing the dog, he suffers what appears to be a heart attack. And then the rest of this story is basically the pizza boy kind of realizes he kind of starts to take care of the old man, and they kind of go out and try to find the dog that he lost together. That's sort of the thing that they start doing, and they become friends. And what I like about this is, even though it's kind of a cliched plot, the standard old man who's mean but he's misunderstood, that sort of thing. It's cliche, but it's sold by the actor who plays the old man, is Ron Cephas Jones, who, if you've seen Luke Cage, he's Bobby Fish.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the old guy who is Luke Cage's like kind of partner after the barbershop. The guy who plays a lot of chess.
Mm-hmm.
And he's in a lot of stuff. He's a great character actor, and he's really hard to not like. It's one of those things where he saves it just based on his charisma. And the guy who plays the kid is from Stranger Things. I forget his name, but
Finn Wolfhard.
Yeah, there you go.
Finn Wolfhard, I
guess. So, and he does a good job too, and they have a good chemistry together as like this kind of battling relationship, a battle of wills. They're constantly throwing insults at each other, and they start off being angry insults, but gradually it becomes more like terms of endearment. Not the movie, like actual terms of endearment. But
what if the old guy was played by Ed Asner? Could you imagine that?
Yeah,
or Nick.
Because Ed Asner's never been involved in any project with dogs, right?
Oh God, yeah, you're right.
Actually, no, that makes your point. It would have been fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I could see that.
What about Nick Nolte? Could you see that?
Oh boy.
So, yeah. Except you kind of song like this.
Oh shit!
All right, so
you took my dog away.
Dog Days had a $10 million budget, and the film made $635,164 on its opening day, a Wednesday.
Yeah.
And another $405,000 on its second day, for a two-day total of $1 million. Wikipedia currently lists its box office take as $3.6 million. So this is underperforming as a motherfucker.
Yeah, it's worth noting Wikipedia's box office total includes international figures.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, that's even
how big of an international push did this get, do you think?
I doubt it played anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this movie has
it's doing great in Zimbabwe. Which
of all places. Another person I want to compliment, someone who's sort of involved in the movie but is not in. Tig Notaro plays a dog psychologist.
Oh, get the fuck out of here! Is that a real thing?
They exist,
but it's she probably plays it up as a joke, though. Right?
Well, here's the thing. Yeah, Tig Notaro's humor. If you're not familiar with her stand-up comedy, she has this dry sense of humor where she'll like she's very meta in that like half of the joke is that she's telling a joke,
mm-hmm.
and her character that she plays in this is the world's most self-aware dog therapist. She clearly knows that this is all bullshit and she's just in it for the money. And those scenes are funny too. That's the thing. There are some moments in this movie that tell me that there could have been a good film made here. The problem, and I mentioned this before, I'm just going to expand on it a little bit more, is that if you're going to do a big ensemble film like this with a lot of crossing over stories, it's hard to improvise scenes like that. Now there is a screenplay for this movie, and it's not supposedly. The thing is, the movie ends with a gag reel where you see all the bloopers, and it's clear that they had multiple takes where where they did the scene with different lines said over and over again, sort of the the typical
say it this way, say it that way kind of thing.
Exactly. Give me another reading. Give me another joke, and they just keep shooting it, and then the director chooses the one he wants. But so there was a lot of improvisation, and I don't think that fits telling a cohesive story when you're blending in so many subplots. It's very difficult to make that work. Whereas in a movie like Love Actually, Richard Curtis. Now here's the thing. I'm not going to say Love Actually is like my thing or like my favorite movie or anything like that, but I think it is a perfect example of a well-constructed romantic comedy with an ensemble cast. It is it's very sharply written. The stories tie in with each other very well. It has a dynamic that just has that emotional punch that is needed. It's the perfect movie to put on a Saturday before Christmas when the parents are there, and you just want to put something on that they will laugh at. And Dog Days is a movie that you can do, I guess, the same thing with, but like in the summer, I guess. I don't know. It's just not. It's not. It pales in comparison.
Right.
And and I'm not calling Love Actually Shakespeare or anything like that, but it's for the type of movie they're going for, it's about as good of a film as you can do. And this is not.
This is not.
Yeah. So yeah, and I find it interesting because Ken Marino's his two movies that he's directed now have been so out of character for him as a filmmaker, as like an actor. Like he's in these goofy, clever comedies, and the movies he's directed are How to Be a Latin Lover and Dog Days. And How to Be a Latin Lover, if you're not familiar with it, it was a movie that was kind of a hit because it was marketed specifically to like Mexican Americans and Latin American like neighborhoods and stuff like that, and it was a hit there particularly.
Right.
It was the first movie that really tried to push Eugenio Derbez as a lead actor.
Oh, he was in Overboard, right?
Right, as a lead actor in a American movie, because he was in a lot of movies. Like he was in that Instructions Not Included movie that was sort of also marketed to Mexican American.
He was in that too.
Yeah, he was the star of it, and he directed it.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, but How to Be a Latin Lover was like Eugenio Derbez exploitation. It's like we want to make him a thing. And it was a minor hit, so it kind of did that. And then Overboard was done, and people realized, they're going to have to work harder than just putting him in a movie to make him a thing.
And having him direct it.
Yeah. Well, he didn't direct How to Be a Latin Lover. Ken Marino did, but
yeah, I know he directed Overboard. Yeah.
So yeah, I talked more about Dog Days than I think I will ever need to ever again.
Never want to.
Yeah. There's nothing more maddening to me than a movie that shows promise that could have been really good if not for a few things. And these few things just drag it so horribly down.
I blame it on Slender Man.
Exactly.
I was right. Okay, yeah. Eugenio Derbez is the racist Mexican help in Jack and Jill.
My mom, I don't know what the fuck my mom's watching, but she's just laughing her ass off at it. She was a second ago. Now when I'm talking about it, she doesn't.
So what was that about Eugenio Derbez, Bill?
He plays the racist, handyman in Jack and Jill, the Adam Sandler movie.
Oh, the one who just keeps making jokes and saying, "I'm kidding."
Yes.
Oh God.
No.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Did you guys know that James Bobbin is directing a Dora the Explorer movie?
Yeah, the Michael Bay produced one.
Oh my God, yeah. I don't see.
Is it going to be animated or is it going to be live action?
Live action. They have a cute 20-year-old playing Dora.
Eugenio Derbez is in it. That's why it came up.
Ah, okay. Wow, that's
yeah.
James Bobbin too. Yeah, he's. I mean,
you can make well, I was gonna say you can make a porn title joke based off of his last name.
Well, I mean, yeah, he did do Muppets Most Wanted and Muppets.
Apples, yeah.
But Bobbin, yeah, I gotcha. It's like there was that '90s Simon ripoff toy Bop It.
Oh, yeah, I had a Bop It.
Yeah, well, it tells you to bop it, pull it.
Bop it, twist it, or pull it, yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like anything that could be turned into a sexual metaphor, does it?
Suggesting anything to kids.
I
think it's okay. I mean, as long as the kids are the right age for it, As long as you're doing it privately, I guess, and safely, it's fine.
As long as you're bopping it in the privacy of your own home.
With the toy, not what's being suggested.
Yeah, but I mean, James Bobbin, the Explorer, that's intriguing.
Yeah, kind of.
Why?
Michael Bay produced, yeah.
I mean, Michael Bay produced things. He's not directing it.
Michael Bay is not listed as a producer on this Wikipedia page, for the record. I don't know if that was like a fake click. Was that a thing, or was that like an Onion article you read?
No, that was a real. Hang on, let me Dora the Explorer, Michael. Yeah, no, there are real articles. Michael Bay forced to confirm he is not developing. Oh wait.
Okay.
So this was a thing where people were confused.
by
it, but Michael Bay denies involvement with Dora the Explorer movie. Michael Bay is involved with Dora the Explorer movie. Just article after article about this.
Any children's cartoon to live action adaptation, Michael Bay's got to be the producer.
It's worth noting that the most recent thing on Michael Bay's production filmography in IMDb is A Quiet Place 2. He's producing that.
Well, Planet of the Dunes did produce the first one.
Yeah, so what I'm saying is he just because an asshole director has like a terrible directing filmography doesn't mean he hasn't produced things,
Yeah.
I like the Star show Black Sails. That's a cool TV show.
Yeah.
Pirates,
Yeah.
yeah.
Pirates. Yeah.
It's basically just Deadwood with pirates, and I like Deadwood, so I'll watch it.
Every time I hear that title, Black Sails, I think of that song, Sail.
I have no idea what that is.
I don't know what that is either.
Yeah, no, you don't need
Sail.
Hang on, let me see if I can sail.
All right, I can think of sailing.
By a band called AWOL Nation.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea what that is.
I know what it's like a techno EDM thing.
And speaking of Deadwood, by the way, recently it did come out that a Deadwood film has like sets are being built for it, so it's on its way to happening. which is interesting because it's been friggin' 12 years since the show was canceled.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine something's going on in that universe where the story is happening, you know?
Unfortunately, the one problem you're going to have there is some Deadwood characters have since died, unfortunately. And also there's some characters that you're going to have to write off for other reasons. Jeffrey Jones, for instance.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Did I tell you guys I was like reading Jeffrey Jones's Wikipedia page and it said like Justin Bieber like this was years ago, but Justin Bieber didn't know about his whole scandal. So he had like taken a photo with him and put it on Instagram when he had like run into him somewhere. And people had to like take Justin Bieber aside and be like, you need to take that photo down. This guy's a child molester.
Oh man.
Did he just have pictures of kids?
Well, true, but still, it's.
I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say
he probably had. I'm
if
saying,
you have pictures.
Was that what he was charged?
All he was convicted of was possession of child pornography.
That's bad enough.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
You might as well be touching the kids, but I'm just saying. You know,
Oh, he might as well not. That's
just stay the fuck away from them. But
that's horrible.
Mom and Dad Save the World will never be the same.
Yeah, and also Powers Booth was on the show, and he passed away, unfortunately.
Right.
So you can't have that. So you can't have Powers Booth. You obviously can't do that.
Jeffrey, that Sigourney Weaver movie with the one where she's a con artist.
What?
Breakers in 2001. He was in Heartbreakers.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
This was after his initial scandal, right, or around that time. And I thought to myself, "Wow, this must have been before that scandal broke, huh?"
They didn't have the technology to insert Christopher Plummer.
Yeah, right. And he was only in a small little role. It didn't matter. But apparently he was on. Let's see. What other movies? He was in several other movies afterwards. Dr. Dolittle 2.
Oh God.
Who's Your Caddy? Remember that?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And then 10.0 Earthquake. So it really went downhill for him. Good.
Yeah.
Raven. He's good people. You know?
Now that said, though, I'm looking forward to seeing Brad Dourif as Doc Cochran again because that's easily my favorite character in Deadwood. Brad Dourif rules.
Brad Dourif rules. You know,
he does.
I'm trying to do a Donald Trump as John Gotti.
He's Brad Dourif. Awkwardly hit stop broadcast.